I'm Sara.
Hi, I'm Arthur.
And we're from the Gilroy Beekeepers Association.
So Sara and I are here to talk about what you should be looking for when you inspect your hive. And we're going to talk about some easy, we'll start with visual clues. So if at first you'll want to look and see what the traffic is like coming and going. Do you see a lot of bees? Is there a limited amount of traffic? And that will all relate to how many bees you'll have in the hive. I count 1, 2, 3, 4 seams of bees.
And again, the seams are 1, 2, 3, and 4 full bees that you can see.
So I'll remove one frame so we can get a look and see how they're building out. And I've kind of stuck this one down below. So they're filling this with nectar. So this side, I don't know if you can see that, but this side has eggs, and this side they're filling with nectar. Also, another thing to look for in the inspection, if you see any phoretic mites on your bees, it's just something to always keep in mind to look for when you're doing an inspection. They look pretty good.
What do you mean phoretic?
Bees that are actually mites that are actually riding the bees. We've seen eggs, so we know that the colony is queen right. The following frame is also built out.
Theoretically, we'd be done.
Yeah.
We don't need to go any further.
Yeah, we've already established that it's queen right, that they're expanding because they've gone from 0 to 4 frames. We can just crack the box and see how they're doing on the bottom. So just tilting the box back.
Dripping honey.
Yeah, so down below we still have one and a half. So we've got about 3 empty frames still. These 2 frames look like they're mostly foundation. I don't see any comb being built on these. Can you see on that side, Sara?
Part of the reason why the bees are so active on us right now is the wind. If it was a nice sunny day, we pulled them off, they would still be calm.
Yeah. So we'll close them back up. If we inspect this colony in another 2 to 3 weeks, the expectation would be that they'll increase by at least another 2 to 3 frames in that time. Now, this year is unusual because it's another drought year, and so there's not a lot of nectar coming in, but I'm still feeding the bees. The last time that I put food on this was on the 8th of May, so they've taken, this was half full, they've taken all that down since the 8th. We're trying to assess the population growth in this. We added the second box at the same time as the last hive. This one seems, just looking at how many bees are in the entrance and at the top, that there are a few more bees. So we're just going to go in and see if there are actually more frames.
And there are a lot more.
Yeah. So in this one, we can obviously notice right away that there are more bees. So instead of 4 seams of bees, we have a full box of bees. Which is nice because it gives you lots of different options. Option 1, we could add another box to this hive and keep going up, giving the bees more room to expand. If we have, second option would be if we have a colony that's kind of lagging behind, we could look for extra brood in here and remove some of that brood and add it to one of the colonies with less population.
Sometimes out of curiosity, I'll find that I have this many bees up here, and knowing I recently add that super, so I'll pull up and check out the bottom one and find out, well, that's because they all came up.
Right.
So sometimes I just check that out too.
Like Sarah's saying, you don't want to keep adding and adding only to find out that they're just moving up into the new box.
They like the sweets.
Yeah. A good trick for that is just to test the weight of the hive. So it should feel heavy. And that's a good way to know if your bottom box or the boxes below what you're looking at are actually full. So this looks really good.
And sometimes from just looking at that, you could say, I could just move on then.
Yeah.
It's so full of bees.
You could make more bees from this because
There's so many bees.
Yeah, there's so many bees. This would be a perfect walk-away split opportunity. You could take just the top box off. You don't have to worry about looking for the queen. You just figure that the queen's going to end up in one of the boxes. And the only thing that you would need to check is that both boxes have a frame with eggs on it. But once you satisfy that question, then you could split it. Yeah, the queenless colony, given the resources, will always make a new queen. I love the way that this looks. The bees look healthy. I don't see any visual signs of any viruses like deformed wing virus.
This is a good example. If this was only one box and you look and you see that many bees, you don't have to count. You go, I can add my honey super.
Yeah. So we've decided to go with option 1, which is adding another box. We're going to put this box on top, and since I created a murder scene in the last box, I'll try to drive some of these bees back into the box.
Don't you want to just guide it over?
Yeah, we could try that, but give them a little smoke. It just takes time, so just kind of hit it.
Everybody made it. Oops.
Also, another thing is to make sure that your frames are sandwiched together in the middle. And it depends on where you get your boxes, because all boxes aren't the same, even though they're all 8 frame or 10 frame. Some have more space on the side. With these, I can put my finger in between.
Yep.
Again, the advantage is that using your hive tool, you could just break open the first frame and then pull it out, and then that gives you a lot more space. Whereas if you just kind of distribute them out, then it's hard to get out, because then the bees will
They'll make up
really
the space.
build super wide comb. So
So one thing we want you to know is Varroa is probably the most devastating pest to honeybees. That attributes to more of the colony loss worldwide than anything else you're going to hear of. So there are different ways to control Varroa. One thing we're going to talk about is the mechanical control, which is a drone comb removal. And drone comb removal can be either through a foundation, a specific green foundation, because it has a larger cell that the bees will build a cell wall with the wax with, or literally you can put a frame in there that's the size of a medium, and the bees will make a longer cell wax on there, and then you can just take it off and take it away. So these green ones you probably have seen and had no idea what they're for. These are actually the drone comb foundations and frames. They have a larger cell than the typical ones that you put in your frames. The reason they're green is so you realize those are the bigger ones, which can serve two purposes. If you want to, you can actually use these in honey supers for bigger cells for honey as well. But in this case, they're specifically for drones. You would put them in the number 2 spot in your boxes. So here's a medium, here's a deep in here. One thing to know, if you don't have these cells, you can use a medium frame and it will do the same thing. So as you can see here, you have that extra gap. So the bees will actually start to build another layer of wax, which then they will use for the drones, because drones are typically on the bottom of the frames. And then when you pull that out, you can literally snap it off or scrape it off, and you can put it in your freezer to kill any of the mites, and then take it out in a couple of days and feed it to your chickens, or just completely discard it. Or you can just give it to your chickens. The one thing you risk though of just taking it fresh out and not freezing it ahead of time and giving it to your chickens is if they are exposed, the mites are hitchhikers. So they can literally hitchhike onto something else and move on and get a ride back to your bees. So putting it in, you just slide it in, that's it. A couple weeks later, pull it out, there you go. And theoretically, these will be all your drones here or all your drones here. And remember, the mites feed off the fat bodies, and because drones take 24 days versus 21, these are more scrumptious. End. So we're going to use Formic Pro now as a form of mite control. The Formic Pro is more of the organic side of it, of a chemical control, and these are safe for the honey supers. So if you have your honey supers on already, you can add those. If you are going to be adding your honey supers on within a month, you can use this also. It is an effective treatment. They kind of look like pollen patties in there. You do need to have gloves on there. The smell is really strong, similar to like a vinegar smell. So you can use a respirator if you want, but I wouldn't say it's necessary, but you should use gloves as always with doing any mite treatment. So you will pull it out of a package. It will come in 2 strips like this, and you will just lay them on. You can do it in 2 different treatments. You can do one treatment with one patty and for 1 to 10 days, and on the 11th day you would replace it with another patty, or you can do 2 strips and leave it on for the 14 days. So you just take it off, put it one here, one here. You don't really necessarily need to pay attention to where the bee's on there, so I generally put them kind of in the middle, one up and one down. Set your lid on there and leave the bees. One thing to note is you do need ventilation for this. So if you don't have a 1/2 inch ventilation on your front entrance, you do need to increase that ventilation. You can just put some little shims in there to lift it up. You can put some ventilation in here as well. And one thing to note on these is that if there is not the ventilation, you could kill your queen or kill your brood. And that also goes into where the temperature, you need to be between 55 and 85 degrees for that. If it gets too hot, that can cause disruption in your hive, and you don't want to start out trying to do a good thing and then find out you kind of messed it up. Next we have Hop Guard as another form of Varroa treatment. This would be more considered on your organic side. It has beta hops in there. These definitely require gloves. All treatments require gloves, but this is going to be your messiest form of treatment in here. These can be used with honey supers, and the temperature needs to be above 50 degrees. So it's a good substitute if you're thinking between this and the Formic Pro. Either one is fine. Just realize that, again, no treatment is good all the time. You have to rotate your treatments. So I would use this in the springtime. You're going to open it up and you're going to pull out these cardboard strips that are coated with the chemical. Set it aside. It looks like that. It can be dripping with it, so that's why we say use your gloves. I usually have paper towels handy also. And it's basically a strip that opens up like this. You don't separate the strip. The purpose is to rest it in between. So you're going to use this one of these per every 5 frames of bees, and it's a 2-week treatment. Again, once you pull it out, you'll just gently rest it in there and set it in there, and you would do another one just like you do with all of them, just staggered, and put that in there. Put your bee space back in to make sure they're secure. Have some gloves ready to wipe your hands, and that's it. Put your lid back on. And basically the bees will chew it and it will toss it out themselves, or you will then replace or take out the treatment. It's up to you. This is actually not one of the treatments that you have to worry that I forgot to take it out. So that's a good thing about this product. All right, next we have Apivar as a form of Varroa mite control. The chemical ingredient is Amatraz. This is your chemical treatment. The treatment in here is about 4 to 6 weeks, and you're going to treat based on the number of frames of bees you have. So you'll, these definitely, you're going to need your PPE and your gloves on that. So you will open it up. The treatments look like these. They have little levers right there for you to hang on. They come up in 2 because it's meant 1 per 5 frames of bees. So you'll just get it and you'll tear it in half. Sometimes it's a little easier. There you go. And the same placement as you would put Formic Pro, you would just put them in the middle and separate them in your hives. So like that. They do have little holes in them, so if you wanted to, you can secure them down with a tack. But basically, you're not going to be going in your hives once you do treatment, so you probably don't need to worry about that. But I do recommend that you flip that tab up a little bit and put it in there. One thing to note is on here is if you're using the telescoping lid, is when you would think about maybe securing it down a little bit more firmly. And it's just because it will pops up like that and it pops the lid up a little bit. If you, or excuse me, the migratory lid. If you have the telescoping lid, you just set it right down on top and it's no problem at all. And you just set it down like that. And again, you're not going to go into your hives once you've done your treatment until the treatment is completed itself. Amatraz is great. You can use it year round. And it's safe at all temperatures. However, you cannot use it when you're using honey supers. So if honey supers are going to be anywhere involved in your plan during whatever season it is, you can't use it. So you really want to think when. I would suggest you start to use it maybe in August once you've done all your honey extraction as part of your fall treatment.